Previously, we introduced the capability delta as a change driver. Now, we expand the toolkit with technology radars, stakeholder analysis, and design thinking to support a broader transformation. Finally, we'll highlight how architects can facilitate sustainability and innovation using tools like materiality assessments to capture insights from a myriad of stakeholders, helping turn ideas into impact. So let's start by looking back into use case 1, where we introduced this trend-spotting concept for disruptive trends that could affect our organization. Trend-spotting is one way to identify emerging patterns. Technology may act both as a potential source of disruption and a key enabler to responding to that disruption. Not every new technology is inherently disruptive, but its cumulative effect can be. And a technology radar can help us identify and track both disruptions and opportunities. Once identified, we can determine our response to these technologies. We can select an assessment tactic, for example, looking at hold, assess, trial, or adopt, and map those to our technical capabilities for inclusion in our roadmaps. EAs need a way to track ideas as easily as possible and when they are generated. This means giving collaborators a visible and accessible way to share ideas. Even a simple idea submission form, like a survey, whether it's used ad hoc or gathered from feedback in a design workshop or even during regular reviews, can be a means to spark meaningful innovation. Most importantly, EAs need to show how ideas can support known capability gaps, strategies, and objectives. We enable that by linking ideas to the same objectives and generating various analytical perspectives. We provide extensive attributes for analysis, and customers can actually extend upon these with their own unique assessment fields. Surveys and stakeholder input will help mature these ideas as an iterative evaluation process. Here in the spider diagram, we can see an analysis of ideas under review and identify which ones meet the criteria for moving forward. Once the delivery threshold has been reached, these can be prioritized and included into the roadmaps, as we saw in use case 2. Our innovation dashboard helps us monitor the health of our ideation and initiative processes and provides visibility for our colleagues into their ideas and how they've been acted on. To support the prioritization of our ideas, we can either use a simple voting scheme or we can view them through various lenses. For example, we can rate them for internal business impact versus external customer impact. We can also look at how we expect them to offset disruptions we've already mapped, both in terms of impact as well as the time we expect for them to have an impact. As part of taking ideas from conception to the operationalization, we support a number of analysis and refinement techniques, for instance, using personas and empathy maps. First, though, we need to understand who our customers are, and building a persona is the best way to start. Another way to slice the data is to classify our customer segments, and then map our customers to the segments they belong to. One final technique would be to examine the channels they use to consume or to access our products and services. Our goal here is to understand how innovation impacts the customer experience. A key first step is mapping the customer journey. We support this in Ardoq, but recognize that it can be easier for people to do this in a more lightweight and drawing type environment. And that is why we also support out-of-the-box Lucid Chart to be able to compare and design future customer journeys. Now, let's look at a practical example, deploying an LLM-powered chatbot in our customer support. We'll begin by reviewing our current legacy chatbot and how it handles a common task like switching tariffs. We can deep dive into this customer experience if we need to, using an empathy map. Obviously, we want our new chatbot to improve our customer experience significantly. Mapping to-be customer journeys may seem like a wishful thinking, but still, it actually gives us an external perspective on our innovation and provides a baseline for setting objectives and OKRs. We also know that external factors are going to contribute to the internal innovation process. Sustainability, for example, is an important aspect of innovation assessment. So let's look at how we can support sustainability in the innovation process. As an example, we provide GRI as downloadable reference data. Customers can also extend this with their own sustainability frameworks as required. This starts with the materiality assessment conducted by identified stakeholder groups through the use of surveys based on the materiality topics of GRI. Stakeholder assessments, in the form of a survey in this example, can be prepared for both internal and external stakeholders. Here we can see how external stakeholders, including investors, provide sustainability feedback through materiality assessments. This information is then available for idea assessment, usually as part of a strategic priority setting, allowing materiality assessment results to shape strategic priorities. These topics translate into company-wide objectives. In this case, the focus is on delivering sustainable IT platforms. At the business unit level, this cascades into specific IT goals. For example, migrating out of the AP data center and reducing technology risk profiles. This bakes sustainability into the quality model for the organization. We can then use imported data from integrations from application vendors, data center information management systems, and cloud providers' own data sources to build an IT carbon reporting dashboard, as you see here. This provides an overall annual emissions and power consumption for the application portfolio and allows us to understand total emissions while looking at it both from our on-premise and our cloud-based solutions. We can slice and dice this data and take a deeper look through the reports to examine all of the on-premise applications to understand which applications are the highest producers of carbon. Another way to understand this data is by looking at it through the business context behind the IT carbon consumption. Using relationships mapped by enterprise architects, we can create a viewpoint that connects emission to specific business areas. Here we focus on the revenue management business area and narrow in on the collateral management capability. We can examine the supporting applications and their underlying infrastructure, helping us identify the carbon footprint of that specific capability, supporting the applications and infrastructure by rolling up the data through the graph. So with the understanding we've now gained, we can turn this into actionable items through the Identify Improvements in IT Sustainability dashboard. This dashboard leverages Ardoq's pre-built solutions for application rationalization and cloud migrations to highlight rationalization and cloud migration opportunities. We can focus in on AppRat and see the potential reduction in carbon emissions and power consumption and link this to application costs, providing a strong business case for our sustainability model. Showing how through rationalization, we can reduce our carbon footprint and realize cost savings as well. Next, we focus in on the cloud migration opportunities and see the potential reduction in carbon emissions, and not only that, but also power consumption, and then link this as well to the application costs. While we retain these applications, we can demonstrate that there is a further potential for reduction in our carbon footprint. Let's take a look at a specific example on how a scenario can help us understand whether our innovation initiative will benefit sustainability. In the main line, we can see that the target application is currently deployed through infrastructure in our own data center. We can see that in this example, the carbon emissions are rolled up to the sales order capability. We know that we want to evaluate the sales order capability to see if leveraging cloud-based services will improve the current situation. We will also be integrating this solution with existing applications which are hosted on-prem, so the sustainability of the overall architecture needs to be looked at. By looking at the green cloud migration scenario, we can analyze if we realize the outcomes we expect by moving to a greener cloud-based solution. And that wraps up our overview of how Ardoq supports innovation and sustainability. While there's much more we could explore, this gives you a clear picture on how enterprise architects can use Ardoq to drive innovation and ESG outcomes in a structured and collaborative way. In summary, Ardoq provides a flexible, repeatable framework for organizations to track trends, spark innovation, and embed sustainability, helping them stay competitive and aligned with strategic and ESG goals.